Alright folks, Chris Hendrickson here, and I am going to be making a redwood shelf. This is a piece of redwood that I got from Hyde Park Lumber in Cincinnati. It's beautiful. So this is for a kitchen remodel project I'm working on. It's called the Fairview House. It's a project I'm really excited about. The house is owned by some friends of mine. As we've been going through the design process, one of the guiding principles that we all agreed on was to find inspiration in California. That's why we're using redwood. So why find inspiration in California? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, the house is a 1925 Craftsman bungalow. So the Craftsman style bungalow kind of came out of California, started in California, early 1900s. They used a lot of wood, lots of built-ins, and lots of redwood. It was plentiful in the area. The other reason is the family, they just like California. They like the California style, the California vibes. They did a great road trip for their honeymoon down the California coast. And I guess the other reason is I'm just kind of curious to use redwood. I love the redwood trees. If you've ever been to the redwoods, you know they're just beautiful and magnificent. So I'm really excited to try this out. This is a kind of a shelf prototype. Let's get into it.
The inspiration for this particular shelf project comes from the Gamble House in Pasadena, California, which is this craftsman masterpiece built in 1908 and designed by architects Charles and Henry Green. I've never been, I just learned about the house recently, but I'd love to visit. There's a Cincinnati connection here too. The house was designed for the Gamble family of Procter & Gamble fame, their winter house, I guess. You also might recognize the house as Doc Brown's house in Back to the Future, which is pretty rad. There is a ton of amazing woodwork throughout the whole house, and all of the wood pieces have these soft, rounded edges that were finished using hand tools. Remember that this was built in 1908, so they did use some machines throughout construction, but all the finish work was done by hand. So I wanted to try this. I first cut the piece of redwood down to 15 inches in length. Then I clamped it to my work table and used a jigsaw to round off the corner at about a 3-inch radius. Yes, I know my saw blade is very rusty. When I was cutting, I knew I didn't have to be perfect since I was going to finish it by hand. At this point, I was really excited to use this old rasp I bought at a garage sale years ago. I wanted to see how it would do on this redwood. All right, I thought, this is going to work well. Then I measured and marked a 1/4-inch line from each edge. That way I'd have a guide when I was using the rasp to make sure the rounded edges were all uniform. So once I hit the pencil mark, I would know that I'd gone far enough. I turned the piece over and did the same thing on the other side. So then I just went to town with the rasp. It was extremely satisfying. I love this tool. It's like heavy-duty metal sandpaper that you can reuse a million times. It was a bit challenging here on the edge against the grain, especially on a soft wood like this redwood. I did this for a long while, and eventually I was happy with how the edges were looking. Nice, consistent, rounded edges all the way around. Next, I got out a piece of 120 grit sandpaper and sanded the edges and smoothed out some nicks and scratches all over the piece. Lots of sanding. More sanding. Also very satisfying. Finally, I got the piece looking really smooth and nice all around. I was now ready to get into the finishing. I'd put in a lot of work by this point, so finally getting to this finish work was very exciting. I used a hard wax oil called Rubio Monocoat to finish the piece. This was recommended to me as I didn't want that plasticky look of polyurethane. I just wanted to enhance the wood grain and color a bit. I'd never done this before, and the guy at the woodworking store told me to use an old credit card, so that's what I did. A little hard to get around the edges here, but I'm learning. I put the unfinished piece next to the finished piece for comparison. The oil really brought out the wood grain and made the color more vibrant. It was really nice. I was happy. As I mentioned, this is a prototype shelf for a kitchen remodel project I'm working on. Eventually, I'll add some corbels to support the shelves. We're still in the design phase, but planning to go into construction next month. So stay tuned to see the shelves in the finished kitchen. It's going to be awesome. Thanks for watching.